You know, it's a strange thing, the way we contort ourselves to fit inside the small spaces of someone else's opinion. We smile when we want to scream. We say yes when everything in our spirit is yelling no. And why? Because somewhere along the line we started believing that peace was something you earned by keeping other people comfortable. Now, let me take you back. There was a time in my life I was grinding, hustling, showing up for everyone but myself. I was saying yes out of fear, not faith. Fear they'd be upset. Fear they'd talk behind my back. Fear they'd leave if I ever truly stood in who I was. I became an expert at shrinking, mastered the art of being who they needed, never stopping to ask who I needed to be. Some of you are nodding because you're there right now. You're walking around with a version of yourself you curated for acceptance, carefully packaged, performance mod, always on. But inside, you're tired. Tired of always managing everyone else's expectations like it's your full-time job. Tired of being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never drops the ball, even while you're dropping pieces of yourself just to keep the peace. Let me free you. External validation is a drug, and the withdrawal is real, but so is the healing. You think they'll love you more if you bend, but the truth is, the more you twist yourself to fit their mold, the less of you there is left to love. And here's the kicker. Some people still won't approve, even after you sacrifice your truth. And now you've lost their respect and your peace. That's when I had to wake up. I had to realize that people-pleasing is really just fear dressed up as kindness. It feels noble. It looks generous. But it's just you handing over your power in exchange for scraps of approval. It's standing in front of a mirror built by other people's expectations and wondering why your reflection looks unfamiliar. You were never created to fit in. You were designed to stand out. And when you live for their applause, you become a prisoner to their silence, because the moment they stop clapping, you stop believing. And that's a trap. What would your life look like if you stopped asking, do they approve, and started asking, is this aligned with who I'm becoming? What if you stopped shrinking for their comfort and started expanding for your calling? Let me tell you something. When you live for their yes, their no will destroy you. But when you live from God's yes, from your divine assignment, no amount of rejection can shake your foundation. The truth is, some of us need to break up with approval addiction. Stop trying to be liked and start being aligned, because you can't fulfill your purpose and play small at the same time. One of them has to go. And when you finally focus on yourself, on your own healing, your own growth, your own vision, that's when the shift begins. Not when they see your worth, but when you do. I need you to hear something that could change the way you see everything. You are not random. You didn't just show up here by accident. You're not some cosmic coincidence or a biological fluke. You are intentional, you are deliberate, you are handcrafted by a God who doesn't do mass production, he does masterpieces. And you, my friend, are one of them. Before your mother ever knew your name, before the world even had a place prepared for you, purpose was already stitched into your bones. You were designed down to the last detail with precision, not permission. That means you don't need to ask the world to validate what heaven already confirmed. But here's the problem. Life, culture, school systems, even some of the people closest to us, they don't teach us to walk in design. They teach us to walk in default. Be like them, think like them, dress like them. Stay quiet. Don't stand out. Don't dream too big. Don't want too much. Just get in line, keep your head down, and stay in your lane. But let me ask you something. How can you stay in a lane that was never built for you in the first place? How can you thrive in a system that doesn't even recognize your blueprint? There was a time I questioned everything. I thought, maybe I'm too different. Maybe I'm too intense, too passionate. too spiritual, too ambitious. I started dialing myself down to be palatable to people who were never meant to handle the full volume of who I am. But then one day, quietly, clearly, I felt the Spirit say, you were never too much. They were just not enough to handle what I put inside you. And that broke me wide open. Because here's the truth. When you're walking in divine design, you won't always make sense to people who are walking in their own confusion. When you're built for greatness, average will always feel uncomfortable. That tension you feel, that discomfort, that's not failure. That's a sign you've outgrown the costume you were never meant to wear. You were born with something eternal inside of you. And if you don't recognize your own worth, you'll spend your life trying to audition for roles that have nothing to do with your assignment. Let me say it plain. You can't keep trying to play extra in somebody else's story when God called you to be the lead in your own. This world doesn't need another copy-paste version of somebody else. It needs the real you, the messy, miraculous, anointed, purpose-driven version of you that stopped apologizing for being exactly who God made you to be. So if you've been wondering why things don't feel right, why success doesn't satisfy, why relationships feel off, why no matter how much you give, you still feel empty, it might be because you've been operating outside your design. You've been chasing approval instead of alignment. You've been trying to fit into a shape you were never meant to fill. But the moment you remember you're not random, that's the moment things begin to shift. That's when you start walking differently, talking differently, expecting differently. Because now you're not hoping to be enough, you're moving like you already are. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, not fearfully and barely made. You carry a divine thumbprint that nobody else on this earth possesses. That means your voice, your vision, your impact is not just unique, it's irreplaceable. And if you ever needed a sign to stop shrinking into somebody else's idea of who you're supposed to be, this is it. There comes a moment in your journey where the people you started with can't go any further. And I know that's hard to hear, especially when your heart is loyal, especially when you've been carrying folks who stopped walking but still expect the ride, especially when you've built history, memories, and even identities around relationships that now feel like dead weight instead of divine partnership. But the truth is, not everyone is meant to go where God is taking you. And the moment you start elevating, when your mindset begins to shift, when your standards rise, when your habits evolve, you'll notice something. People will start to fall off. Conversations you used to enjoy now feel empty. Environments that once felt familiar now feel foreign. The people you once laughed with now look at you like you've changed. And guess what? You have. And you're supposed to. See, elevation always demands separation. Always. The mountaintop doesn't have room for the crowd. You ever seen a group of folks camped out at the summit of Everest? No. Because elevation is lonely. And growth is expensive. It costs you comfort, familiarity, and sometimes even connection. Let me make this plain. When God starts pulling you into purpose, he will begin pruning your circle. That's not rejection, it's preparation. That's not punishment, it's positioning. But we fight it, we resist it. We say, well, they've been with me since day one, and I hear you. But just because they were a part of your origin doesn't mean they're meant for your outcome. Some people were only assigned to your wilderness season. They were never meant to cross into your promised land. And here's the danger. When you refuse to let go of what God is trying to remove, you delay your own breakthrough. You sabotage your own blessing. You're holding on to something that no longer serves your destiny and calling it loyalty, when really it's fear. Fear of walking alone, fear of starting over, fear that you won't find better. The better can't find you until you make space for it. There was a time in my life when I begged people to stay. I lowered my energy to meet them. I dimmed my light so I wouldn't blind them. I quieted my voice so I wouldn't offend them. And still they left. Still they withdrew. Still they faded. And it took me a long time and a lot of pain to realize their exit was my elevation. They didn't leave me, they freed me. Because sometimes God will allow people to fall away, not because they're bad, but because they're done. Their chapter in your story has closed, but you're still trying to reread the same pages, hoping for a different ending. Let them go. If it's pulling you backward, let it go. If it's keeping you stagnant, let it go. If you have to keep explaining, defending, or minimizing who you are just to be accepted, let it go. You can't take everybody with you into purpose. And if you try, you'll either have to slow down or sabotage your potential. And neither one is an option when you're called to lead, to build, to impact, to transform. You were created to soar, to expand, to rise. And yes, it hurts when people you loved don't understand the new version of you. It hurts when they distance themselves, when they question your motives, when they whisper about your change like it's a crime. But what they call changing, God calls becoming. And becoming will always cost you something. But the reward, it's freedom, it's clarity, it's peace, it's alignment. It's walking in rooms you were born to be in, not rooms you had to shrink to stay in. So if they walk away, bless them. If they fall off, release them. If they don't call anymore, let it be. Because what God has ahead of you is far too important to be weighed down by who refused to grow with you. Let them go. Let purpose lead. There's a shift that happens, a powerful, often uncomfortable shift, when you stop living outside in and start living inside out. When you stop measuring your worth by the noise around you and start tuning in to the still, unshakable voice within you. Because the truth is, your real power has never come from who praises you. It's never come from your follower count, your job title, your relationship status, or how many people show up for you when life is good. Your real power, it's been inside of you all along, buried beneath years of programming, performance, and pretending. We've been conditioned to outsource our value, to wait on applause before we take a step, to wait on consensus before we speak our truth, to wait on approval before we give ourselves permission to grow. But growth doesn't need approval. It needs intention. It needs clarity. It needs commitment. That's why your healing, your wholeness, your future, it doesn't begin when they finally see you. It begins when you finally see yourself. There was a time when I thought I had to prove something. Like if I achieved enough, impressed enough, did everything right, maybe then I'd finally be worthy. Maybe then the doubts would go quiet. Maybe then the weight would lift. But what I learned painfully, slowly, and beautifully is that nothing out there could ever fix what I refused to face in here. See, your inner world governs your outer reality. And if the internal isn't healed, the external will never satisfy. You can change jobs, change friends, change cities, change hairstyles, but until you change your perspective, you'll keep repeating cycles in different costumes. Some of you are stuck, not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you've been giving away your focus to distractions that look like obligations. You've been so busy trying to manage the storm around you, you've forgotten to calm the storm within you. That's why the greatest work you'll ever do is not in the spotlight, it's in the silence. It's when no one's watching. It's the early mornings, the journaling, the prayer, the disciplines, the tough conversations with yourself that say, I refuse to live another day beneath my potential. When you shift the focus from what others are doing to who you are becoming, you tap into something unstoppable. Because now your confidence is not fragile. It's not built on compliments. It's built on conviction. You're not shaken by who leaves, who doubts you, who misunderstands you, because you've learned to source your security from within. Listen, the enemy of your progress is not their opinion, it's your lack of focus. It's not their rejection, it's your resistance to sit still long enough to ask, what am I really here for? Because when you begin to master yourself, your emotions, your mind, your habits, your time, that's when doors open. That's when influence expands. That's when blessings flow, not because you manipulated them, but because you aligned with them. Alignment is magnetic. You don't chase what you're aligned for, it finds you. The opportunities find you, the right relationships find you, the resources find you, because you become a match for the future you've been praying for. But it all begins with focus. And not the focus that comes from ambition alone, but the sacred, grounded, daily decision to look inward, to build from the inside, and to trust that who God is making you into is worth more than anything you're tempted to chase. The greatest victory is not when others believe in you. It's when you believe in yourself enough to silence the noise, shut the doors, and get to work on what really matters.